Audi certainly made a styling statement when it introduced the original A5 coupe back in 2008. Now, since then, that model actually aged pretty gracefully throughout the years, but this week I'm testing the fully redesigned second generation model, and it looks as if it's ready to do battle with the likes of BMW and Mercedes with their all-new coupes. Because the original A5 was such a dramatic departure from Audi styling back in 2008, the company didn't feel the need to fully redesign the car for a full 10 years. Now, usually if you wait that long, a lot of critics and consumers will complain that Audi let this model get stale. However, that really wasn't the case, and the previous generation A5 aged so gracefully that you could literally buy a 2017 model and it still was pretty competitive with the likes of the new BMW 4 Series and the Mercedes C-Class Coupe, which is why when the company decided to follow up with this fully redesigned model, they had some pretty big shoes to fill. And you can see the design of this new one certainly takes the more conservative approach, a more evolutionary take in terms of the design language, kind of similar to what we saw in the new B9 A4. This is, of course, riding on the same platform as that vehicle. The A5 has always been the two-door version. Now you can see the front end has the corporate Audi design language, the single-frame grille, these very angular, boxy shape to the fenders, to the hood, to the headlights. It's a very conservative take, a mature look. And to me, it still looks conservatively handsome, but it doesn't have that kind of wow factor that the original A5 coupe, which is of course pretty hard to do. It's pretty hard to follow up on something when you had such a beautiful take on styling with the original model. Now, my tester is the mid-level Premium Plus trim in typical Audi fashion. There's 3 trims to choose: Premium, Premium Plus, and the Prestige. These full LED headlights are standard on the Premium Plus. They're optional if you guys go for the premium model. My tester also has the S-Line Sport Appearance package, so you get a slightly more aggressive front end, these really nice, attractive looking 19-inch wheels, which are a good size, but I kind of wish Audi had finished them better. In fact, the Floret Silver Metallic with the silver wheels on my car kind of just screams a little boring to me. I really recommend, if you guys are going to go for this car, go for a brighter color, go for a slightly different finish on the wheel. If you guys want to go for the S5 model, that actually has the more aggressive looks that I was looking for in this particular generation. The A5 can look a little bit stale, especially with these more bland colors. Now, in terms of the size, Audi did make this model a little bit bigger. The wheelbase is about a ½ inch larger or longer. The overall length is nearly 2 inches longer, and the vehicle is surprisingly a little bit narrower, like a ½ inch narrower, but it does sit a little bit lower, going with the more, stance, a more aggressive stance that you coupe buyers are going to expect. Now, at the back, you have a very clean look. Again, you have these LED taillights with the dynamic turn signals, so they kind of turn in sequence, just like the new A4. Dual exhaust tips are included on the A5. If you guys go for an S5, you'll get quad exhaust tips, which of course I'll show you guys a full review on that later. Overall, I think the proportions of the A5, as I said, are conservatively handsome. Kind of wish Audi took a little bit more risks with the design. There is also different body styles of the A5. There's a convertible version, a cabriolet, and then a sportback, which is a 4-door hatchback, which kind of looks like a sedan. To me, that model is probably the one that I would really be looking forward to testing, which I'll do in the future. But enough about the exterior of the coupe. Let's take a look at the inside and see all the changes that Audi made this year. Since my tester is a Premium Plus, it does come standard with the company's smart key access system, intelligent key with push button start. This is the new key fob. Really like the key fob on the new Audi products. It's a nice solid feeling key. It looks really nice as well. Now, when you first approach the A5, you can see there is no button on the handle. Instead, there's a little indentation portion here. Just touch your hand on that. It'll beep, it'll lock the doors for you. To unlock it, there's a sensor on the back of the handle. Just touch the back of the handle and you can see the door handle kind of lifts up and it opens the door for you automatically. Now, looking at the inside of the A5 coupe, you can see if you guys have spent some time in the A4, this is pretty much a carbon copy. The seats do have a little bit more aggressive bolstering because this is the two-door. You can see you still have like a 12-way power adjustable seat with a two-person memory. And my tester, of course, with the black leather is pretty traditional. I wish Audi does offer like a brown or a beige leather, I believe. The S5 models will offer like a red leather if you guys want to go for that. Now, stepping inside the vehicle, you can see it does feel lower to the ground than the A4, so you kind of have to sink in a little bit, but that's going with more of the traditional coupe sense. Now, when you shut the door, it sounds nice and solid, and because this is the coupe, it actually has this nice little thing here that pops out to give you your seatbelt, which is definitely a nice little touch. It reminds you again that you bought a premium vehicle. Now, to start the vehicle up, all you have to do is keep the key fob in the vehicle and then push this button down here to fire up the engine. Now, as you can see, Android Auto and Apple CarPlay is actually standard on every A5, even on the base trim. And my tester, because it's the Premium Plus, it has the 12.3-inch virtual cockpit display. That is actually optional. It's part of like a navigation technology package that you can get. It's standard on the Prestige models. And just like I showed you in other Audi products, by pushing this button here and then using this little button here, you can kind of change the views. You can put the nav screen there. You can see Google Earth is right in front of you. And then you can also, put the nav screen over here, which is really nice to have this ability to put two navigation screens in front of you. Now, let's talk a little bit about the interior quality, because Audis have typically been class leading in that regard, and they've kind of fallen back. They're pretty much only class competitive now. You can see the dashboard is made of a very soft touch material. It's not stitched though. They don't offer the stitching, which is something Mercedes does, or even Alfa does with the new Giulia. So it's definitely, still nice in here. There's some aluminum trim. You can change that to wood if you want. And everything in here fits really nice. The door panels here are also slightly soft touch with more aluminum here, aluminum door handle. It's slightly padded here, but again, it could be softer and it could be stitched, so I'm surprised with that. The windows are one-touch automatic for both the front. You kind of expected that in a luxury vehicle. The mirrors are also power folding. Whenever you use the little control stick here, you can electrically fold those mirrors in if you're in a tight parking spot. The steering wheel is pretty nice. It's not heated though. You can get it to be a heated option. It has paddle shifters on the back of the wheel. They're not anything too special. They're mounted to the steering wheel and they're plastic. The steering itself, of course, is electric power steering assist. We'll go into the driving dynamics later. My tester, because it's not the Prestige, doesn't offer as anything besides just Presense Basic, which is low-speed automatic collision avoidance, where it'll hit the brakes for you and give you a collision warning. And then it has Audi Side Assist with the rear cross traffic alert. If you guys want adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, you have to go for the Prestige model. Now, looking at the center stack here, you can see it looks identical to the A4. I really like this row of vents right here. There's dual zone automatic climate control. Of course, my tester also has heated seats. They're 3-level heated seats. There's also an available option to give you cooled seats, which would be the button down here. My tester, of course, doesn't have that. There's some more buttons down here. This is for the parking sensors to turn them on or off. This is for the automatic start stop, your stability control off switch, and then your drive mode selector is here. You push this button here, you can cycle between individual, dynamic, automatic, comfort. Individual allows you to basically tailor the steering, the engine and transmission, and the engine sound to your liking. Down here you can see this controls the Audi MMI display. I'm not going to go too much in depth with this. It's very similar to the A4 that I showed you. There's a handwriting pad here. This scrolly wheel, kicks, and pushes forward. You can push in. Audi did fix one criticism I had, and that's when you're kind of scrolling down, the wheel finally turns in the right direction, at least for the American market. Whereas if you turn it to the right, it goes down, or clockwise. Turn to the left, it goes counterclockwise. In the past, it was always the opposite, so it's nice to see Audi fix that. Going to the nav system here, you can see it's Google Earth. You do have to pay for the 4G LTE. This vehicle does have a wireless hotspot to get the Google Earth, which is really nice. This is the best navigation system in the business, especially when you combine it with the Audi virtual cockpit display. It's all really nice. I really like how Audi puts the volume controls down here, and then the shifter. This controls the 7-speed dual clutch transmission. You can also get a 6-speed manual on this car too, which is no cost option. It's available on all the trims. Really nice. When you put the vehicle into reverse, you get a backup camera, of course, with front and rear parking sensors. It has trajectory. Audi does offer a top view camera system, 360 if you guys go for the Prestige model. Basically pull the shifter back while holding this, it goes into drive. Push it forward without holding that, it goes into neutral, or at least one click, it goes into neutral. Park is engaged by pushing this little button here that goes to park. There's also a sport mode. When you come back and kind of just flick it back toward drive, it'll put into a sport mode here. There's electronic parking brake as well, a little bit some storage there. There's cup holders there, and then over here the armrest in typical Audi fashion, it does kind of adjust based on, you know, how many clicks you pull it up, and it also slides forward and back a little bit. There's a little bit of storage here. You can see I've pretty much filled it up with all of my crap, which does a good job of holding it, and then you can kind of hide your stuff over there, although there's this little open part right there. Your USB, of course, is over here. There's 2 USB ports and an aux port down there to charge up your phones. The glove compartment is also a pretty big size. It's damped, it's lined with felt, and then my tester has the optional Bang & Olufsen audio system. It's 19 speakers and 755 watts of power. It's phenomenal. Bang & Olufsen is basically my favorite in-car audio system, and in the Audi A5 it doesn't disappoint in that regard. This pano sunroof is standard. It is a pano sunroof, but it's not kind of the whole way, but it's bigger than your standard sunroof. Really nice feature. There's a nice little, you know, retractable power sunshade here, which is kind of like a net finish, which is nice, of course, but overall the inside of this car, kind of wish they differentiated a little bit more versus the A4, but it's still a really nice place to spend time. To access the rear seat, you basically have to pull this lever forward here and then push this button here that will electrically move the seat forward, and then getting into the rear seat of the A5, you can see the coupe is only a 4-seater. If you guys go for the sport back, it'll give you that middle seat back. The coupe and the cabriolet only seat 4, but getting back here, you can see it's a little bit cramped. The A4 sedan is definitely the one you want if you actually plan to use the back seats, but when you put the seat back, push this button here to bring the seat back to where it was. There is surprisingly amount of room in here. Now I'm 5'7", like I said, there's good foot space. I mean, I would be okay back here on shorter trips. Surprisingly, my head doesn't hit the roof, so there's good headroom here. There's some nice LED lighting here. Audi gives you a nice little fold-down armrest with some storage right there. No additional cup holders, it looks like, though, which is interesting. The seats themselves, they fold down 60/40. Audi gives you some nice vents back here where it's actually, you actually get your own set of climate control, so it's actually a 3-zone, so that was kind of unexpected. Over here, the materials are actually soft touch, just like the front, and then some more padding right here where your elbows may rest. And then Audi does give you 2 map pockets for a little bit more storage space. Looking at the trunk capacity of the A5, it's definitely a little bit smaller versus the A4, but you can see here, looking into the space, it's pretty deep. The floor is kind of a little bit shallow, but you're looking at around 11.5 cubic feet of space. I believe the sedan gives you about 2 cubic feet more. Then you can see you can fold down the seats from these levers back here. Now looking underneath the floor, thankfully Audi gives you a temporary spare tire, so you're not dealing with a fix-a-flat kit. Under the hood of the new A5, you can see it's the same powertrain that I showed you guys in the A4. This is the company's new updated 2-liter turbocharged direct injection motor with a TFSI, their direct fuel injection system. Now, in the new A5, it makes the same power, 252 horsepower, and a pretty stout 273 pound-feet of torque. Now, that's up from the 220 and the 258 that you got in the previous generation. Now, if this isn't enough power, the S5 steps in to offer you a 3-liter turbocharged V6, which has 354 horsepower. I'll show you guys that video later on when I get one to test. Now Audi also just introduced the RS5, which offers a 2.9-liter, surprisingly smaller V6 with twin turbos, which has 450 horsepower. I can't wait to show you guys that review, but the vehicle is not on sale yet. Now you can take your pick between 2 transmissions. There's a 6-speed manual or the 7-speed dual clutch transmission that my tester has, and then it comes standard with Quattro all-wheel drive system. There's no front drive model on this particular A5. Now fuel economy is pretty impressive. It's rated at 24 in the city, 34 on the highway. Audi says this gets to 60 in around 5.5 seconds. It weighs around 3,600 pounds. Let's get out on the road and see how it all performs, shall we? So it's been a while since I showed you guys a review on an A5. I think the last one I showed you was like a 2010. That had the old 2-liter with a 6-speed automatic. This is pretty much identical to the last A4 that I drove with the powertrain. It's a very impressive combination. Can't wait to show you guys the S5, but I'll have to wait until Audi actually loans me one. But my initial impressions for the A5 coupe is pretty positive. I mean, aside from the slightly bland looks, as I said earlier, the driving dynamics definitely aren't bland, and this is one of the quickest accelerating vehicles in terms of base engines that you can buy in this segment. Just like the A4, the A5 really impresses the moment you put it into its dynamic mode, floor the accelerator. Now, it does have a little bit of hesitation off the line. I'm not sure if it's turbo lag or if it's the dual clutch trying to get its thoughts together, but that's kind of a characteristic with a dual clutch engine or transmission. It can be a little bit laggy off the line. Now, Audi's is one of the best in the business, but if you've never driven a dual clutch, you're gonna kind of experience that for the first time. But once everything kind of kicks in, this thing seriously shoves you into the back of the seat with a level of urgency you just didn't expect from this car. Now, this car does actually come with launch control. To activate it, you put it into its dynamic mode. You turn the stability control off. You just push the button once. It puts into a sport mode. You hit the brake hard with your left foot, floor the accelerator until it builds the revs, and let go of the brake. Seriously, that's fantastic. And then with that quattro all-wheel drive grip, there's no drama. It just kind of goes. This is just fantastic. I am so impressed with this powertrain combination. It's just the base motor. Like, this is just phenomenal how fast this car is. It feels every bit as quick as 5.5 seconds. And there was a time where that was the speed levels of the S5. So this is just fantastic. Now let's talk a little bit about the noise this four-cylinder makes, because when you put it into its dynamic mode, it makes the exhaust a little bit louder. It's got, like, I don't want to say an active exhaust, but it kind of puts the engine in dynamic sound. When you get the revs up, it sounds okay. I mean, you're never gonna forget that it's a four-cylinder, and compared to the old, supercharged V6, it doesn't sound all that great, but it's pretty much in line with all the other, four-cylinders turbos that I've tested. Although I haven't driven the new Giulia TI, and that's a model that I'm really anxious to drive. Now, I also like how when the dual clutch shifts, it produces those crackling, those farting noises. They're slightly muted, but I'm glad that they're there. Now, let's talk a little about the handling with the A5, because typically that hasn't always really been an Audi standout point. And, with the steering in dynamic mode, I'm happy to say that it has really good weight to it. The precision is also there. It feels, pretty solid. This is a really competent handling car. You do feel the weight going around corners. I mean, this isn't exactly a super light car. It's 3,600 pounds, but it has a very stable, smooth, controlled ride. The visibility in here is also excellent. Great view out of the front, out of the back, because it has a more traditional, sense in terms of the styling. But really, the steering could use a little bit more feedback. That's always been a typical Audi, trademark. It's a little bit on the numb side. But really, this is a really great car to daily drive, and if you don't push it, if you don't plan to actually take it to a track, you're going to be really impressed with the way the A5 handles. Of course, in typical Audi fashion, it does have a little bit of understeer when you really start to push it, but really a lot of drivers who get this kind of a car, they're not going to really reach those limits, especially not on public roads. But I'm just super impressed with the way the A5 drive. It really impresses. It'll impress you the way the A4 does. It's basically just a two-door version of that vehicle. Now, getting up to highway speeds here is no problem for the A5. And really, when you start cruising on the highway, this is where this car excels a lot as well. It's pretty quiet in here. Aside from a little bit of that muted four-cylinder turbo growl, there isn't too much in terms of engine noise, in terms of wind noise, in terms of road noise. This is just a really excellent daily driver. And really, my Tesla's just missing all the driver assistance tech stuff that I really want to try out. But I really don't like how Audi limits it to the Prestige trim. I think that they should offer it on at least the Premium Plus, as well as an option where it's an $1,800 option on the Prestige. Audi forces you to kind of go all in to get the driver assistance tech, which is kind of annoying. A lot of luxury brands do it. It's kind of frustrating when you can find cars like a Toyota Corolla or a RAV4 that comes standard with all those features, and you have to go to when you go to a luxury brand, you have to pay extra for it. But that's kind of the price you have to pay, with going with that luxury brand. Now, speaking of numbers and pricing, let's talk a little about the fuel economy first. I mentioned earlier it's rated at 24 in the city, 34 on the highway. I actually averaged around 25 in mostly city driving, around 30 35 miles per gallon on the highway when I took it on a long highway trip. It's fantastic in terms of the MPG. So this, engine, this powertrain is very fuel efficient when you guys want it to be. And when you combine it with the start-stop technology, it really helps to save the fuel if you guys want to do that. And it also offers the performance when you guys put it into its dynamic setting and really start, pushing this car. It's a really fun to drive car. Now, the price of the new A5, you expect this to be more expensive versus the old one, and it is. It starts now at $42,800. That's about a $1,500 jump versus the old model. And it's kind of worth it considering the new performance, the new, all the standard features. Audis typically have more value than the German competition, and it does. If you want a comparable Mercedes C300 4MATIC coupe, that starts at around $45,000. The same story for BMW 430i X-Drive coupe, which again starts around $45,000. When you compare this car to its Japanese competitors, the A5 starts around the same price. A Lexus RC300 with all-wheel drive starts around $43,000. Same story with the Infiniti Q60 2-liter T Premium with all-wheel drive. The Cadillac ATS coupe is also a lot more expensive, but for me, the interior of the Cadillac just doesn't compare, although dynamically it does handle very well compared to the Audi. Now, my tester being the Premium Plus, you get LED headlights as standard, you got the smart key system, you have the option to add in, the Bang & Olufsen audio, the navigation. This model starts at around $45,000, $3,000 upcharge. My tester with the technology package, with the navigation, the 19-inch wheel sport package option, the sport seats, my tester stickers for around $52,000, which again, it's a pretty good chunk of change, but you're going to be paying that much for all of its Japanese competitors, mid-trim like that. And keep in mind, if you guys want the manual, as I said, it's not an extra charge for the manual, and if you guys want, a fully loaded Prestige with everything, this car will top out at around $55,000, which again, can sound like a lot of money until you start building a comparable Mercedes or BMW, and those can top $60,000 for their base 2-liter turbo 4-cylinders. So Audi still has the value baked in. I just kind of wish that they offered a little bit more distinction in the styling, and they offered their, driver assistance tech on other trims besides the top-of-the-line Prestige. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this 2018 Audi A5 Coupe. If you're in the market for a compact luxury coupe, this one should definitely be at the top of your list. Just keep in mind that it can be a little bit on the conservative side, but if that's what you're looking for, I think you'll find a lot to like with this all-new A5 Coupe. But if you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, make sure you follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and if you haven't done so, please subscribe to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll catch you all in the next video.